Motivated violence such as this is the original domestic terrorism.
Accused Charleston shooter Dylan Roof is facing almost 36 federal charges in last month's shootings at Charleston's Mother Emanuel Church. A grand jury in South Carolina has indicted the Midlands man on 33 federal counts, including a dozen hate crimes.
Now, Roof is already facing multiple murder charges at the state level. The death penalty is a possibility in both cases, the federal and the state. Now, what do all these new developments mean for this case? Do they change anything? Our Tara Pettit has been following this story for more than a month now. She's in the studio now with more.
Brian, Janet, not all that much changes in the Charleston shooting case, but this whole new set of federal charges does something that prosecutors in South Carolina can't. There is no hate crime statute in the state, and federal prosecutors say this case has to be treated as one.
This is the original domestic terrorism.
U.S. Attorney General Loretta Lynch spoke to the World Wednesday after a grand jury in South Carolina indicted accused Charleston church shooter Dylan Roof on a dozen federal hate crime charges.
This is exactly the type of case that the federal hate crime statutes were in fact conceived of to cover. Racially motivated violence.
South Carolina is one of only 3 states that does not have hate crime legislation. Georgia and Arkansas are the other 2.
I believe that the role of the federal government is to do what the state is either unwilling or unable to do.
U.S. Attorney Bill Nettles says although there's been one tragedy, there are essentially 2 very distinct crimes Roof is accused of committing.
To adequately reflect what had transpired, there needed to be a prosecution for the hate crime portion of this crime.
Nettles says the government notified the state Tuesday of the federal indictments.
Roof chose Mother Emanuel because it was an old church, historic church, and that it was historically significant as one of the oldest African-American churches, not just in South Carolina, but in the nation.
Generally, once the feds indict you, they're basically saying we're ready to go.
Former U.S. Attorney Reggie Lloyd says Roof is now facing 2 separate trials, one at the state level and one with the federal government. And because of the severity of the crimes, Roof is facing life in prison or possibly the death penalty.
You could end up with conceivably two death penalties.
Roof now faces an additional arraignment in federal court while he will face these new charges. He is also charged with 9 counts of murder at the state level. And at this point, federal and state prosecutors have not decided if they will pursue the death penalty in the case. Live in the studio, Tara Pettit, WACH Fox News.